everybody, it's KayBeast, and for this week's art video I'm doing, I guess you could say it's sort of like a cheap art supply challenge. I have this set of Pentel color pens. I've had these for forever, so maybe this is more like an old art supply challenge? I don't know. I don't even remember where or when I got these. I know I've had them since at least high school, so that's a good 12 years ago. Yeah, I wasn't even sure if like Pentel made these anymore or not. I googled it, and they do apparently, and they've updated the packaging. They're like $14, I think, and they're 36 for the 36 set, and they're just these little markers. They're water-based, and I thought it would be kind of fun to try and use these to make an illustration. If any of you have watched any of my cheap not my cheap art supply challenges, if you've watched any of my sketchbook tours, in some of the sketchbooks you've seen that I've colored in things with these markers, so I have had them for a while, like I said. So yeah, these were interesting. Again, no idea when or where I got these. They might have been a stocking stuffer because my parents used to give me art supplies in my Christmas stocking when I was in high school and stuff. I may have bought them with my own money. I don't know. They've just always been there. So yeah, I figured why not try to do an illustration. So the first thing I had to do was swatch them out because, you know, these markers are at the very least a decade old, so I wanted to make sure they still worked. And most of them did. And I was surprised by how bright some of the colors were. I was expecting them to be duller or something. Again, I haven't really used these in a while. The only color that was really kind of dead was the black marker, which is kind of a bummer, but I wound up not needing to use black for this drawing anyway. But yeah, so once I swatched them, I just kind of looked at the color selection that I had and tried to figure out like what I had to work with basically, because these markers don't really blend because they're water-based, and I tried blending them. You can see here I picked like a yellow and orange and a red and tried to blend them together, and it didn't really work. I'm using mixed media paper, by the way. I didn't want to use watercolor paper because I figured it would eat up the ink too much, but I figured mixed media would probably hold up to the marker a little better than like regular printer paper. But even then, it still ate the paper up a little bit, especially when I tried to layer. So, yeah, no, the blending doesn't really work. So once I saw what sort of color selection I had to work with, I decided to draw a Scarlet Macaw. I had a lot of reds and I had a lot of blues and greens and stuff, and I figured drawing a very colorful animal, and I'm still kind of in my bird thing right now, would give me the most options. I wanted to use as many colors as I could. And again, blending didn't really work for this, so I kind of tried to lay out where the shadows were and color it in sort of in like a cell shading style, I guess you could say, and just used what colors I had to match the reference photo that I was using as best as I possibly could. So, and I had a lot more fun with this than I was expecting. It was a little frustrating at times to use because since I was trying to cover the paper so thoroughly, the paper got wet, and the ink tends to bleed a lot when the paper's damp because, again, it's water-based ink. So there were times when I was working on the red feathers that I would have to stop and wait for a section to dry before I went in with the brown marker to do basically like the line art, I guess. So it was touch and go for a little bit, and one of my blue markers started dying right near the end. So that was kind of fun. But I basically just went in sections and filled in where the darker areas would be, and then filled in around it with a lighter one, with, again, the best colors that I had to work with that were close enough to what I was trying to accomplish. You can't see it in the video, but I have a scrap sheet of paper off to the right, and I'm using that to test the markers before coloring, just again to make sure that they work well together, and also to clean off the nib, because even though I tried avoiding using multiple layers as much as possible, even just doing a single layer of coloring, it would wind up tearing into the paper, and I'd wind up with little bits of chewed up wet paper stuck to the end of the marker. So I had to use that scrap sheet of paper to basically clean off the nib so that I would have a clean fine point to work with. So I was doing that basically the whole time. But yeah, despite that, I'm still pretty happy with how this turned out. It was kind of weird coloring with it. I'm not used to coloring with markers anyway. I do have some Copics, I just don't really use them that much. I have a set of the cool grays, and I mostly use those in my sketchbook for like value studies, but beyond that I don't really use my Copics as much. I don't really have a lot of them, and don't really have the money to buy a lot more right now, so they're just kind of sitting in a bucket, not really getting used. So I'm not really familiar with markers as a medium, but this was kind of interesting. I don't think I'm going to use these markers again, though. I think they finally, I don't know, they finally got their use, I guess, because they were sitting just in boxes of old art supplies for like a decade. I have a lot more really old art supplies in the basement, so if you guys want to see me digging up old stuff and just trying to use them for a video, I can do that. It might be good to get one more use out of them before I decide to like donate or throw them away, because I do need to do that. But yeah, despite my frustrations with it and with the paper and everything, I'm pretty happy with the final result. I think I managed to do something good with them, and they're not terrible markers, just, you know, they are water-based, so they're not going to function the way alcohol-based markers will, but they're only like $14 something on Amazon, so, you know, if you'd like to play with them, I'll send a link I'll put a link in the description below. But yeah, so here's my Scarlet Macaw, and this was kind of fun. So yeah, I guess that does it for this week's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye!